Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome.
Yay.
Welcome to the surprising magic of integrity. It's a wonderful quote here that I found that I really like. If you have integrity, nothing else matters. If you don't have integrity, nothing else matters. It's beautiful. And
Oh, that's
we,
great.
so we're excited to have you here. Please put in the chat where you're coming from. That would be great as we allow a little time for others to trickle in.
And we are missing Leslie today. She is not feeling well, so we said, please look after yourself.
Yes, definitely.
Hmm.
10. Great. Yeah, and so while we're putting things in chat, is say at expanding you, we know when you expand your courage and your joy and your love, that is what is going to make change in the world or empower us to make change in the world. And we also want a community that does that. So in that community, we have the support and strength for each other to grow and heal and be our true selves. And the idea of integrity to show up in a level of integrity that we are talking about today. And I'm sure you all read about integrity and have a value of it in your life. But today we're going to talk about it in a way that is probably not heard by most people. It aligns very perfectly with our work and the identity continuum and evolving your identity. And it is a very deep concept that we realize in tackling it. We'll probably have to do a number of talks on it. So today we're going to go over just the highlight pieces that give a big feel into the picture of what do we mean by integrity. And what's your first thoughts when you think of integrity or the word integrity? What's the first thoughts or feelings that come up for you? Please put them in the chat or feel free to put your hand up and just share. I'll call on you.
With this size group, we can easily have a real conversation.
But being true to yourself, yes, and
Mm.
very good.
And
Sarah,
I
would you
would
like to
also
speak?
add, and being true to your word, like doing what you say you're going to do.
Yeah,
Nice.
And doing what you feel is right even when no one else is looking.
yeah,
Oh, I love that,
great,
Shirley.
great. These are definitely key components of integrity, and I think you guys would be a little surprised at some of the pieces that we're going to add.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So I think we'll just keep going, Jeff, and jump in.
Yep.
So I think with all of us here, we've already expressed, um, a value of integrity. So in hindsight, thinking back on a situation or whatever, have you ever thought that you were out of integrity, even when you thought you were? Anybody had a situation like that? And I certainly have. Yeah. And so the question is, how did that happen? What was going on that I thought I was in complete alignment and missed it, either a little or a lot? And so today we're going to be exploring that beautiful question of, what really goes into integrity. And so one of the things that we've discovered as we started to really dig into it that really lines up with inner balance beautifully, as each of you will know, is one of the things we often leave out is feelings. And so many of us have been raised not to pay attention very closely to our feelings. Or if we are, we've been told to kind of get over them, discount them, manage them, etc. And so we're going to look at what are the implications when we do that. And so Jeff's going to put up a beautiful visual. Hello, Ellen.
Hello, I was just grabbing a bite to eat.
You're not alone.
And girl,
It's
Okay.
lunchtime.
Okay, good. Well, I'm at 3 o'clock. I just finished doing a bunch of errands and I went, no, I can't miss this, but I also need to eat.
Well, I'm so glad you're here. I think you're
I'm
going
glad to
to
be
love
here.
this deep dive into
Yeah.
integrity.
Mm. Mhm.
All right, so I'm going to
So-
jump into the big picture. Where does integrity fit in the big picture of personal development and spiritual evolution? And with our work, of course, identity evolution.
Right.
So some of you may know the work of David Hawkins and the levels of consciousness. This is a hybrid version of his work mapped into our work at Expanding You. And so what I want to point out to everyone is notice where integrity is. So there's the constructed identity, which is in the lower frequencies. Self-honesty is required to get up to the higher frequencies. Excuse me. So as you're all saying, being honest with yourself, being true to your word, even when nobody's listening or watching, these are all the earmarks of moving up into the space of integrity. And as Lynn just said a moment ago, we've been really conditioned to discount our feelings or dismiss our feelings, which leaves us in the bottom end and out of integrity. Lynn, is there anything you'd add to this before I move on?
No, and I just like, if you look at the far right, it's called fourth dimension, but it's integrity and healing. If that's where we want to be, we're way above some of the feelings like anger, fear, grief, apathy, etc. And so that's really important to notice how we need to get to a neutrality in the feeling, a willingness, and an acceptance to actually get into that area of integrity and healing.
Which is also a good marker the other way. When you actually are fully aligned in integrity, you'll be having these feelings. You'll be more resonating at this higher level.
Mm-hmm. Good. So now we want to take a close look and offer a framework that I think really simplifies it. I'm always such a big fan of things that simplify things that I can hold on to in my brain. And so we're going to offer that there's 3 areas to take a look at when we're looking at integrity. And this actually comes from Virginia Satir, who was fabulous at recognizing we've got to pay attention to ourselves, as we've been talking about, and our feelings. But then in any interaction, we've got to pay attention to the other person, or plural, other people. And then the third part she recognized is context. And so today we're going to look at integrity through that lens of self and integrity with others and integrity with context. And so our value is self-integrity is most important. Integrity with others is often the most difficult. How do I really show up honestly with my feelings and vulnerability and whatever else with others? But integrity in terms of context is the one that's the most overlooked. So it's going to be fun for us to dig into and see how often do we leave that piece out of the equation.
And so I just want to add here a key piece.
Yeah.
Anytime you're out of integrity, it means you're deleting or discounting information. So if yourself, you could be deleting or discounting your feelings or the costs of your behavior. With others, you could be deleting or discounting what's going on for them, what they're feeling, what they want.
Yeah.
And with the context, you can be deleting information that's pertinent to what's happening overall. So that's a key sign that you're out of integrity. You're not allowing or you're deleting information.
Great. So
Yeah.
I think, taking something like that and then locking it into a personal story is often the way I remember new information.
Yeah. And just before I do that, Lynn, I'm just going to put up how we're defining integrity
Thank you.
through
Sure.
this lens. So through the lens of other context, integrity is not just about personal honesty. It's about relational and situational attunement that ensures one's actions uphold both personal truth and greater harmony of relationship and environments. This is probably not the normal definition you would hear for integrity, but it shows why it's such a high level achievement or state of being to align with in that chart.
And I think that's why we think this is such a juicy topic, because many people will say, oh, I have integrity. And then there'll be something that isn't in integrity. And you're like, I thought they valued integrity. Like, but understanding the more multidimensional aspect of it, you can really start to make sense.
So
So
I'll give you a very quick example. Oh, Ellen, you have a question?
Yeah, I was just saying, our political times
Ooh.
would be like a magnificent case study for, does it ever happen? Where, when, why, and how? Because it's
That's right. And look
pretty,
what's
yeah.
being deleted, ignored
Mm,
in certain interactions that you're seeing
mm,
from political people.
Well, and I would say the position that we'd also be holding is when you're in the constructed identity, which is fear-based, survival-based, your system's trying to protect all the time based on your past conditioning, you'll not be able to be in integrity.
No,
Because of course the fear is going to want to protect, which means you're going to delete or ignore all these things on purpose to feel safe inside. And so you'll go for safety over integrity when you're in your constructed identity or conditioned mind, however you want to hold that.
that's why I really love that diagram that you showed, Jeff, with the levels of consciousness. As soon as I pick up I'm in fear, don't even bother trying to defend that you're in integrity. You're going to absolutely be missing something.
So true. So let's give a little mini example.
Yeah.
It was Lynn's birthday last week. Yay, happy birthday, Lynn.
Thank
And
you.
so my family had Lynn over for dinner for a little birthday party at her house, at my mom's house. And I had a full day. And so I had a nap at mom's house before Lynn arrived. And as I was waking up, I heard Lynn's voice and I was like, oh, Lynn's here and I'm in bed. And so I panically got up and rushed down to, say hello. And I was off. I wasn't quite awake yet. And so then I had some stuff of our work and I went and pulled out our work stuff and kind of just launched into, oh, look at this work stuff and let me unpack these things. And basically I didn't realize I was off and got into kind of task focused mode for about a half an hour before I realized, hey, what's going on with me? Like I'm off in some way. Like I'm feeling a little frustrated, a little annoyed, and I don't know what was happening. And so I reflected on myself, used the tools, of course, that we use at Expanding You and Inner Balance and those things. And then later had a conversation with Lynn about what I realized I was doing. But in that situation, I was out of integrity with myself. I wasn't honoring my feelings or my want or my state. I got up like, rushing,
Right.
like, gotta look good, get down there. What are you
Yeah.
doing? And
Yeah.
so, and then I was out of integrity with Lynn, of course, not recognizing where she might be at because I was so caught in myself. And then I was out of integrity with, it's her birthday party and I'm bringing work stuff up. So I'm out of integrity with the context, and so there's just a mini example that can show how quickly it happens. And it's obvious when we talk about it. I can see it in hindsight. The key here is we're talking about integrity in a way that we're not going to notice. Like Lynn was saying at the beginning, you thought you were integrity in moments, but you weren't. Why not? What was happening? And this is a good example. If we think of it like don't steal, and if I steal something, I'm out of integrity, that's pretty obvious. We're talking at a very high level for people who are into self-mastery and want to understand it at a really deep level.
Mm-hmm.
We easily slip into it.
Oh, that was such a beautiful, and I mean, such an innocent example with all the best of intentions and so on and so forth. We can miss. And one of the things we wanted to say is that when we miss or are out of integrity, those are learning moments. Those are opportunities for us rather than self-blame or judgment. This is an evolving growth kind of thing. That's why we love the idea of continuum and the path and so on. It says, hey, we're all on there. And sometimes we're in integrity and sometimes we're not, and so forth. But there are, yes.
I'm still getting my head around context.
Yes.
And so one of the thoughts I just had right now, it would be the expression, read the room, girl, read the room.
Yes.
Right.
So that it means I'm in it, but I'm ignoring whatever it's about.
That's right.
I'm not in sync with the others.
Right. You're in sync with yourself probably, but not others or the context of the room or the environment situation. Absolutely.
Interesting.
So now
Okay,
that we
all
name
right.
it, you're going to start to see, and Ellen is a presenter, so that's a great example. Something's happened. Maybe there's a death in the community and you've just come in to do a workshop. Whatever. When you miss reading the room,
On humor. Yeah, okay.
yeah, she's doing a workshop on humor. So one of the misconceptions is that if we're in integrity, then everything's going to go beautifully. Everybody's going to be happy. It's going to be perfect. Yeah, do you believe that, Shirley? Nope, nope, that's a misconception. Another one, I can be in integrity when I feel confident in my choices. That's what, when I'm really confident and sure, that's when I'm going to be in integrity. And we think that idea that absolute certainty is when you're going to be in integrity and rock solid is actually the wrong answer. It's actually when we're able to hold uncertainty and question marks and allow what's unfolding. So we're offering that deep integrity sometimes involves embracing what we don't know, the uncertainty. Don't know where that person's coming from. Don't know what the situation is now like. Thought I knew how to interpret something.
Yeah, I really get it too. Then I know when I am in integrity, I am, and that's the opposite of what you're saying.
Yeah.
I don't know for sure what's going on, but I'm curious, and I'm going to ask questions from a balanced place,
Yeah.
not a pointed place where I'm trying to get them somewhere. It's literally like, what? Okay, help me out. I'm unsure what's happening here. That is a place of honoring myself, honoring them, honoring the context. It's a great example.
And that was for me a new idea because I think I had associated integrity with clarity, confidence, you show up super strong. And now I've expanded it to almost the opposite. Yes, there's clarity and confidence, but there's also the openness, as Jeff said, to uncertainty and that honest curiosity.
So what we'd like to do now is we're going
Yeah.
to role play each one of these three so that you can get a really good feel for what we're talking about. And I also want to let you know, we're going to ask the questions here. They're all on the worksheet. So later the video will come out to the email list and it'll have the worksheet in it. All of the worksheet is built right into the examples we're doing.
Yeah.
And some of the questions we're asked can seem pretty obvious or a little bit redundant. And notice the example I gave earlier. I could have answered any of those questions when I was lost in it. And so that part of bringing ourselves to a greater self-awareness and self-honesty is asking these very simple questions and going, oh yeah, I was doing all of those things. It's obvious now, and eventually get in the moment, see, hey, I'm doing those really obvious things. So don't hold these questions as too small or silly. They actually have a real good purpose of slowing ourselves down to really tune in. So first example, I gave an example of out of integrity with myself. So let's say that I've been telling myself for months that I need to prioritize my health. And I keep saying I'm going to start working out and eating better. But every day my life gets a little busier and I kind of push it aside. And then one night after a long, stressful day, I grab takeout, I skip my evening walk, and I tell myself, I'll start fresh tomorrow. But tomorrow turns into next week. Next week turns into next month. And then I start feeling frustrated and disappointed with myself. And then I have thoughts like, why can't I stick to my commitments? I don't have the discipline for this. Maybe I'm just not the kind of person who follows through. Of course, I brush these thoughts off. But underneath there's a sense of unease happening. And I really know on a deep level that I'm out of integrity with myself.
Good.
And
Great.
so, Lynn, would you like to walk through some of this?
Yeah. So we'll walk through just using some of the, as Jeff said, simple questions that are on the worksheet. So first, were Jeff's actions aligned with his true values? Pretty clear the answer is no. That's right. So did he honor his personal commitments? Pretty obvious. Answer is no. Did he feel at ease? Or was he experiencing some distress, resistance? Exactly. So the question we'd like you to reflect on is, How were Jeff's actions out of integrity for himself? How would you describe that? You can put it in
Please.
the chat or you can speak into it. Yeah.
Yeah, put your hand up and speak in. I'll call on you, or please type
Yep.
it in the chat. Absolutely, thank you.
If you were just assessing that. Yeah, Sarah.
I would say that he's out of integrity with himself because he made a promise. It's something he really wanted to do. And then push came to shove. He didn't do it and he put it off again and again and again.
Right. Shirley, you look like you had an idea there.
I'm pretty well with Sarah that, he's being out of integrity with himself, wanting to make this commitment. And the reason I relate so well is I'm actually at the same place. And I keep saying tomorrow, I'll start tomorrow. Now the kids are out of school. I can't go to the pool because there's too many kids. But yeah.
Right. So, and is there any other aspect that you think there could be a little out of integrity? What was popping in my mind is you've lost or deleted somehow that real important priority of your health. So that's a little more subtle. But when I move something that's a priority out of my awareness, like it's out of my visual field, and people say out of sight, out of mind. Well, and we're looking just at self, but there it is, out of mind.
Well, I'd say too, Lynn, in this example, I am deleting my feelings a number of times. I mean, I'm even having thoughts and then I dismiss them and go back to, well, it's fine, looking for excuses or justifications, which of course is middle stage of constructed identity.
Yeah.
I've moved into a justifier position or reasoning away why I don't want the thing that I really do want.
Good.
All out of integrity with myself.
So let's go to a little synopsis. We're going to give you a few key points with each of these little role plays that we're going to do that reflects. So this is out of integrity with self.
Yeah, so we've been touching on a bunch of these things here. Breaking promises with yourself. Clearly, I did that. So you continue to tell yourself you're going to take action, but you don't follow through. Procrastination is resistance. It's clearly a time when I'm out of integrity if I'm procrastinating. Ignoring your own needs and feelings, like Lynn said, the want or my value for health is a need or a want. That's getting dismissed. So I'm not prioritizing my health, making it important. Another piece here that we haven't said yet is also I'm not fully stepping into the costs of my behavior. So I'm deleting the costs that my behavior creates, which of course means not so good health and lower self-esteem and all those sort of costs that come with it. I don't typically look at those. So one of those questions will be on your worksheet, the costs. And then creating internal conflict. Of course, I'm very aware that my actions don't align with what I want. And then I feel guilty and frustrated and self-doubt or self-esteem. Self-esteem goes lower, self-doubt goes high. So these are all earmarkings that somebody is out of integrity with themselves.
And the last one is something that we can easily play down, but it's like out of balance, out of balance, out of balance. It's going to creep up and have a significant cost. So let's look at restoring. If one wanted to restore integrity with self, we have 3 tips for you. 1, no surprise, be honest with yourself. Truthfully acknowledge, what are you feeling? What are your needs? What's going on for you? And so if you've overcommitted, an hour workout isn't going to work for you, then look at trimming it down. Then in terms of honoring your word, the one Sarah mentioned at the beginning, even in small ways, you can start to build that trust back up. Start to restore, make smaller plans, and do something, a small step today. And the third is to recognize that cost of self-betrayal. If you ignore it, your internal misalignment, that discounting of feelings and so on, you're eroding your own sense of trust in yourself. that's really not a good thing to erode. And I remember telling you, Jeff, that my mother, who loves chocolate, came to my house and I had a bunch of chocolates. And she said, "How can you have all this chocolate left over?" And I said, "Well, I just have one now and again," and blah, blah, blah. And she said, "I would have eaten all of it." And I said, "Well, I've made a deal not to do that." And she said, "Well, I never keep that promise." Like she was straight up clear. I don't keep my promises to myself. She said it in a joking way. We both laughed. But you know what? That's not really a laughing matter. So, all right. So, key
Well,
takeaways.
yeah, so the key takeaways here is integrity with yourself is the foundation for everything else. It's the starting point. I know we're talking about 3 areas of integrity, but this one is the most critical because it bleeds into everything else. So when you start keeping your word to yourself, you start honoring your feelings, prioritizing the things you want, then you're going to strengthen your self-confidence in your self-trust. And that's going to empower you to show up more effectively in other areas of your life. Like integrity
Okay.
with others, which
Hey,
Lynn is
hey.
going to do a role play on now. Does anybody have any questions about anything we've shared so far or any insights you want to share?
Let's give them the next one and we'll check in again.
Perfect. Okay.
All right. So, I don't know why I got chosen to pick this one. So, imagine I have a close friend who recently invited me to help them with an important project. And I agreed. I'm excited to support them. I love doing that. But as the deadline approaches, I realize I'm actually overwhelmed with my own commitments. Instead of addressing it directly, I kind of avoid their calls. I send a couple of vague messages. I'm getting to it. I'll get back to you soon. And I'm secretly hoping they figure out without me. Well, the project deadline passes, and my friend expresses her disappointment. "I was really counting on you. If you'd only told me earlier, I could have found somebody else or another solution." And now I'm feeling guilty, defensive, maybe even a bit annoyed that she asked me and that they're now upset with me. And so my mind justifies it. It handles that distress by going, "Well, I just really, truly, I didn't have time. I had too much on my plate. They should understand that I'm super busy. And, I really wanted to help. I just didn't want to let them down, so I didn't say anything." So deep down, I know I'm not in integrity with them. So let's look at that.
Yeah, so we'll go through the some of the very basic questions. Did Lynn communicate openly and honestly, even if it was difficult? No, clearly she was vague and avoidant. Did Lynn honor both her truth and the perspective and needs of others? No, she turned her so focused onto herself. And did she avoid withholding, manipulating, or compromising herself? Clearly, no. She did all 3 of those. So, so what I'd like the group to share is, how did Lynn's actions put her out of integrity with the other person? And again, you can put it in the chat or put your hand up and share your thoughts. Shirley?
Does it mean that you've broken the trust?
Oh, sorry, Ellen.
Oh,
Shirley had her
sorry.
hand up
Okay,
first. That's
Ellen.
okay.
I sorry, I'm not seeing as clearly.
Yeah, well, to begin with, Lynn wasn't being truthful with herself, and she wasn't appreciating that she was already overwhelmed and she took on more than she could handle.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, really good. And what ways do you see that created her being out of integrity with the other person?
Well, when she was overwhelmed, then she was sorry that she had taken on more than she could handle. So instead of focusing on what that person needs, she's focusing on her needs, or what she needs for herself.
Exactly. Well said. She didn't share what was going on with her, so the other person could have that new information so they could make effective choices.
Right.
And so she focused on herself, and her own fear kept her stuck. Absolutely. Ellen, did you want to share? No, now you're mute. Okay.
Oh.
I think Sarah is ready to share something as well.
Well, I think Shirley kind of said it, but you know, I feel where it really deteriorated was that she just didn't tell the friend, hey, listen, actually, I'm overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed. What can we do about this? So right there was where the breakdown really started to happen because she kept it and avoided it. And that's just the worst feeling. We've all done it at some time, right?
So
It's a
true.
terrible feeling.
Terrible, for sure. Our fear can be quite strong sometimes. Worrying about
Yeah.
conflict or upsetting other people can get us caught.
Yep.
Okay, Lynn's going to break down the three
Yeah.
aspects of how we know we're out of integrity with
So,
others.
yeah, as you observed in me, I avoided honesty, didn't communicate in this scenario, and truthfully speak, to my capability. It wasn't my desire, or willingness. It was about really what I had on my plate, leading them to believe they could rely on me, which I think is what Ellen was pointing to in trust. What's going on there? Second, I actually discounted the other person's ability. I didn't hold them able to sort it out if I'd given them the information that I can't help in this situation. So that's an interesting blind spot. Oh, I never realized I was discounting their ability. And third, I discounted the consequences for the other person, not recognizing, for example, there was a deadline. There was a consequence in terms of completing a project or whatever. And so again, that damages the relationship and so on.
Really well said, Lynn, for sure. It's obvious when we see these things that we're doing them, but in the moment, it's not top of mind. That's what's actually underpinning our behaviors.
And
breaking our
even
integrity.
just sharing that story, I could feel how out of balance I was going. Like it's getting like closer to the deadline and I haven't, now she's reaching out and now I don't know what to say. It's like, so now I'm paying attention to me because I'm underwater with my thoughts, feelings, guilt, shame, whatever you want.
Right. Getting worse.
I got no room for even focusing on them. I'm worrying about myself in that. So it viscerally, you can feel it.
All right. So how do you restore your integrity with others?
Right.
And we've touched all around it. So take ownership, recognize, hey, I'm avoiding a conversation, and that avoiding is actually, I'm thinking preventing harm, and it's creating harm. Two, clear communication. So going forward, can I follow through on my commitment? And if I can't, can I honestly speak into that? And three, honor my relationship with them and myself. So integrity isn't about saying yes to everything. It's about being truthful while still being respectful to both your own needs and feelings and their needs and feelings and wants. And so those will help you restore your integrity with others.
So the key takeaway that I think is so good is integrity with others doesn't mean being perfect. It doesn't mean always delivering exactly what they want. It means being honest, transparent, and responsible for your thoughts, feelings, actions, and how they impact the people you care about. That's really what integrity is about. So clearly, avoiding a tough conversation just made it so much harder. So true integrity strengthens trust, it deepens connection, and it prevents unnecessary harm.
And I just want to also circle back to we were talking at the beginning that when you're out of integrity, Lynn was saying, as she said the story, she noticed her system going further and further out. It's easy for our ego to jump in and go, oh, look at me, I should do better, and bring in the guilt, the shame, and all of that. And just know that that is another move of the constructed identity and its fear-based behaviors. The point here is to actually catch yourself and go, okay, I'm deleting information somewhere. There's something for me to learn, there's learning opportunity or a skill for me to build. So find that place of loving ourselves, even when we're out of integrity. It's a place to learn.
Yeah. Resisting to going into protection and opening to the learning. I love it.
Okay, last example we're going to do around context.
Anita has a question.
Awesome.
I just had, but what if you're hurting the other person by being in integrity?
Well, that's
Can you give an example how you could be in
So
integrity with
I
them?
have a friend who's very much toxic right now, and she's in victimhood and everything. And I tend to ignore her calls lately because it's too much, and I can't take the load that she's downloading on me. And if I tell her that, you know what, I'm done, I can't do this, which maybe would be integrity with me, but it would hurt her. So do I just step aside with my feelings and keep listening to her until I'm really done? Or
so
because
my
someone's
offer,
losing out on integrity here, right?
yes. And the thing that your system is ignoring is she's being hurt every time you ignore her, every time you aren't available, every time. So the hurt is happening. It's like death by 1,000 cuts. Yes, they're less obvious. You just ignore, you're just not available. She knows you pulled back and she's wanting more.
Mm-hmm.
So pretending that you're not doing actions that she can interpret as hurtful, that's where we're kind of ignoring that piece. So now I'm going to say, do you want to hurt her that way, or in quotes, hurt her? Because truthfully, she's giving herself the pain. It's the meaning she's giving it. But which do you prefer? That pain that comes out of just ignoring and not answering and da 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 da, or the pain of honesty that you're actually just not in a place that you can handle much beyond what you've got on your plate right now.
Mm-hmm.
Is that helpful?
Yeah. You're still hurting either way, but
That's right. So
the
now
better
you
of the
get
two
to look at
evils.
cost. That's right. How are you going to feel about yourself if you just keep ignoring her, or you give in and you do against yourself and give her what she wants? You get to look at the bigger picture of costs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I would also offer, Anita, could you imagine yourself speaking up in an honest way of just thinking first of yourself, her in the context, and then having a statement to her, say, hey, I noticed it's been like context. I noticed you've been struggling a lot lately, and these things are going on in your life. And it's been really hard for you. Now you're moving into her, you're from context into her. It's really hard for you. And I know you reach out and share it with me. And now moving into yourself, I have enough of my own stuff. I'm struggling at times with this. So as much as I want to be there and support you, I'm also struggling and overwhelmed with this at some times. So could we find another way to do this?
Mm-hmm.
You're fully in integrity and you're honoring all three parts. The next part is up to her. You won't be able to control what she does or doesn't do.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll feel in integrity with yourself.
Yeah.
And I know that may be hard to do in the
Mm-hmm.
sense that we don't know what they're going to do. Is she going to show up in conflict and argue or get mad at you? I don't know. We don't know.
Mm-hmm.
This is the kind of stuff we talked about in inner balance, right?
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah. Was
But
that
you
helpful for you?
also, yeah.
What Lynn and I
How
have
was
offered,
that?
was that helpful?
Yes, it was. Thank you. Yeah.
It also puts you in a position of strength, Anita, because you've owned your feelings and you've acknowledged her in the situation to be able to say, you know, I think what would work for me is coffee once a week, blah, blah. And
Mm-hmm.
you control the whatever, or, you know, I'm just making that up as the example, but you're in a better position to say what works. Or maybe it's taking a break for a while until you get things, you know, working for you. Whatever it is, it's a much stronger position.
Yeah, it also might be offering, like, is there what things can you do to support yourself through this challenging time? Maybe she needs a counselor or a coach or
Mm-hmm.
or something. Clearly on her own, it's not
Yeah.
working well.
I tried that, but she can't answer when I ask her, well, what do you think you need? And if I
Okay.
tell her what she needs, she doesn't like that either. So I'm
Right.
No,
kind of give up.
Wow. It'd be a stressful situation for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Anita.
Thank you.
Shirley, I see your hand's gone up a couple times.
Yeah, I totally relate to Anita because I had a similar situation, and I guess what came to my mind right away, which isn't about integrity, but it, in a sense, it relates, was setting boundaries around myself. And even though I wasn't brave enough to actually have the conversation with my friend, I stepped back. Or when things got really rough, I'd say, you know, I think I need to go for a walk, or I need a break. I need to take a break. But now after today, I realize that I could have been more in integrity by actually having communication with her instead of just taking a step back. So thanks for sharing that, Anita.
And I'd like to say something into that, Shirley. I think it's great. And it just for all of us to know, we go out of integrity all the time. Like, this is not a perfection thing, it's a progress thing. And so, of course, and I think it was great that you noticed you're out of balance, out of integrity, and you step back to observe yourself and ground yourself and get more clear so that you could go back and restore your integrity and balance your system at a future point. Much like the example I gave with Lynn around her birthday. You know, I noticed the things were going on for myself. The next day I called her and reinstored my integrity by explaining what had happened inside of me and apologizing to her. So that's a great example, Shirley.
And it's also remembering that we don't have control of other people's feelings. And so if we go too far into thinking we make them feel happy, we can make them better, now you're over in someone else's business. You're not staying clear and centered in yourself. So we're working with all these variables, which is why we really like that definition of integrity, of there is uncertainty as we're working through this. There's an unfolding. We don't know what Anita's friend's going to say, but we do know if she can bring herself forward, it gives a chance at a deeper connection, a more honest relationship. And if that's what the other person is up for, they may need a little time to come around, but you've given them the opportunity by showing your honest feelings and thoughts.
Yeah, I think it's a good point, Lynn. That like you're saying, this is about truth, not about trying to rescue or change somebody else. So the truth is, I think something's going on for you, and just ask the question so they can tell you. You know, but if the moment we move into trying to change them or want them to be different, we've actually gone out of integrity ourselves now. Because the integrity is saying this is the truth of the situation. Let's work with that. Let's work with what is. So I'd like to be able to role play this last example around context.
Yes.
Which might be more helpful here as well as getting more depth into what do we mean by out of integrity with context. So imagine that I have been working hard for a promotion at work, and I put in the extra hours, I've taken the extra projects on, and I've sacrificed my personal time because I believe this promotion is coming to me.
Yes.
So I'm feeling really confident about it coming until my boss announces he gives the role to someone else. Immediately, I have frustration and disappointment, even some resentment. My mind starts to race. And I think, this isn't fair. I worked harder than they did. Maybe I should quit. Why bother giving my best to this company and it doesn't pay off? Or I need to improve. I need to improve so I'm not making these same mistakes. So I spend the next few days in frustration, replaying the situation in my head, complaining to my friends, and checking for flaws in the other person who actually got the role. And so then I start to notice myself disengaging and maybe even subtly withdrawing from my team. How have I gone out of integrity with the context here?
All right, so a few questions. Obviously, did Jeff accept reality as it was, or did he resist it? Clearly, he resisted.
I have to say something. I read one of my statements wrong. I need to prove they made mistakes. I read it wrong. So that might be confusing to everyone. Sorry about that.
Right. But isn't that exactly how the mind goes? They made a mistake. They got it wrong. And I need to bring it to their attention.
Go the boss. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Jeff. So notice, was he adaptable and opening to what was unfolding, or did he hold on to and his resentment, his frustration? Clearly he held on. And was he open and curious about the bigger picture or the other variables that could have come into the picture? No. So again, just opening it for you to step in, describe how his actions, the way he was thinking about it, what he thought he might do, how was all of that out of integrity with the context? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, Ellen, I see your hand up.
Well, he wasn't looking at the big picture. He
Yeah.
wasn't looking at the totality of it. He was just looking at my part in it.
And how would you describe the big picture, Ellen? What was he missing?
Well, it's me in relation to the others and to the task at hand. And I guess when you think you're ready for a position and you don't get it, who would you talk to about it besides yourself? And if you ignore that, then it's you're not in context.
Right, because was he thinking about the big picture for the company and what the company's needs were? Was he thinking about the expertise that they may have been looking for in order to expand? Was he
And
thinking,
and to me, that I guess that integrity with yourself, others, and in that context, all three of them would come together. And you would
yes,
and you would need to be able to say, who do I want to be the person that finds out more? I want to
yeah,
find out, okay, how does Harry fit in to the bigger picture in a way that I didn't?
beautiful,
Because I want to be able to support him in his job. Then I also want to be say, okay, so maybe I have some gifts that other gifts that I need to actually figure out where they fit well in this company
that's right. So you
differently
see how
than,
widening that whole
yeah,
bigger picture. What's the
yeah.
company's needs? What are my strengths? What the other person bringing to the table? Beautiful.
Yeah, it's really good. You can see I deleted all the bigger stuff and took it personal.
Totally, I know it. Well,
Yeah.
it feels personal.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the thing though. It's like I remember clients go, yeah, well, it feels bad. Sure feels
Right.
personal. And I go, yeah, no, it does. Because you had your picture of what it was gonna be.
That's right.
Yeah.
Would anyone else like to share how I was out of integrity with the context? Thank you, Ellen.
Well, it's just really hard to be in integrity in that situation in the moment
Mhm.
because you do feel attacked or you feel like you lost something when and you realize a few weeks later down that, oh, thank God I didn't get that job or or that promotion
Yes.
because something else better came up or there was a reason why you didn't get it. And if you were more in integrity, you could have just went to the boss and say, hey, this is what I've been doing. What else can I do
Mhm.
to better myself for the next promotion?
Well, Anita, I want to honor what you're saying. I think it's really true. Like, as much as we want to hold ourselves as super evolved, and that the situation like this might happen, and I would just be like, okay, well, I'll take the big picture of the company in mind. Like, the initial reaction of our nervous system is, oh no, and it can feel like an attack or a put down. So that's natural. That's normal.
Mhm.
The key is, do we get caught in that and follow that, or do we check in with ourselves and shift and adjust and use the concepts we're talking about today?
Yeah.
But I agree, Anita. It's a natural reaction for somebody to go, damn, and then feel like it's personal. That's very natural.
And then go further out of integrity and let's now call down the other person. Let's look for their flaws and so on. Like now we're descending that hierarchy. We're going down the feelings.
Right. Yeah, and you can see we turn it into a competition and a right and wrong and all these things. It just gets us further and further out of balance and further out of integrity. It's
Yeah.
going to be hard to grab these big concepts when you're way out of balance.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's
So
for
let's
sure.
show them the
Okay, so the
summary
keys
for
that you're
this
out
one.
of integrity with context are resisting reality. So the decision's been made, yet my energy was still focused on how it should have gone differently. And so, in effect, I'm arguing with what is. If you catch yourself doing this, you are likely out of integrity. Hey, I missed the word context.
Yeah.
Out of integrity with context. I didn't put the word context at the top of the screen.
We'll fix that.
Number two, there's this, you fall into a sense of entitlement. This is kind of where I was taking it personal. I'm right. I deserve it in this situation. I am deleting the bigger context. I'm moving into self-interest. And then lastly, losing the bigger perspective, the bigger frame, which Ellen pointed out quickly. In my frustration, I'm now looking at a personal injustice, me not getting this promotion, rather than understanding the broader context of why they made the decision to pick the other person, or why was the other person a better fit. And that's a curious place for learning for me. So if you're doing any of these three, it's a sign you're out of integrity with the context.
All right. So now if we look at restoring your own integrity with the concept of the context, well, first step is let's accept the reality of what has happened. Let's not get stuck on that and do that loop of it shouldn't be, it shouldn't be, it shouldn't be. It happened. I don't have to like it. I maybe don't even have to agree with it, but I can choose to look at what is there to learn here? What could I gain? How could I open up and understand something more about myself, the company, whatever? Secondly, for restoring integrity is having some humility and gratitude. Okay, what could I really see that actually is good? And Anita pointed out many times when we don't get something, we actually are happy afterwards when we start to see, oh, I would have been miserable in that job. Or maybe you didn't get the boy, maybe whatever it is. Like I have teenagers, grandkids. It's actually a good thing sometimes when you don't get the partner you think is just perfect when you're still just a teenager. Then how about expanding the perspective in order to restore your own sense of balance? What's good about the situation? What are the opportunities? How can I see this in a bigger way? That's a fabulous way to rebalance your scales. So now it's not personal, it is about learning, and you've opened up. So
Excellent. So the
takeaway.
takeaway here is when we stop focusing on what should have happened and we start responding to what is actually happening, then we free ourselves from the frustration and the regret or the self-shame, and we regain our personal power and we open ourselves to new possibilities. And so that's the three role play examples of self, context, and other. And that is our big picture on how to define when you're in integrity or not. And what does it look like? I would love to hear from all of you what this was like to hold integrity in this frame.
What stands out? What's useful? Yeah, surely.
Well, for me, it was huge. Such a much bigger picture than I actually held that word integrity. Yeah, I figured it was doing the right thing, even when you had a different opinion or you wanted to do different or others were doing different, standing in your integrity. But today I can see it's way, way bigger.
And the steps you're taking, if you look after self first, that's very important, Shirley, as you said, setting a boundary in some situations, recognizing when you actually want to say no and saying it, even if it's hard. Those are important steps in this journey of opening up to the bigger picture as well. Because if we discount ourselves, nothing else after is going to go well. That's a showstopper. So
I have been on a personal journey of, self-love, taking care of me, and I've been doing it since last June. And each time something like this comes up, I think, oh, now I know why it's taking so long. You've got so much more to learn.
yes.
It's just amazing. It just blows me away. So thank you. Today was amazing.
Thank you, Shirley. Ellen?
Yeah, it's just revisiting it's sort of what Shirley is saying also, but it's all about the self. It really is all about me. If I don't learn it first with me, then it can only go off the rails everywhere else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So true. So true. Actually, I've seen situations with people who are justifying how they're in integrity in some way, basically trying to get themselves feeling like they're in integrity. But it's clear from the outside, they are not in integrity of that person or the context, but they found ways to feel good about themselves. And sure, I guess that avoids them feeling shame or guilt, but also avoids them learning and growing, and it avoids them creating more trust, mutual respect in relationships. So they wind up pushing people away and they don't understand why.
Yeah, I'm thinking, Jeff, of the example that we've heard and seen where somebody says, well, this is my truth. I mean, it's their problem if they're not happy with it, comfortable. So they're still way back at just looking at self and doing whatever they're doing, but we've broadened the definition of integrity, which is an alignment with self, other, and the context, having some cohesion around all three elements.
Yeah, what I like about it is we're talking about the truth of where somebody's at and not going into wronging or judging them and not trying to change them. Just,
Yeah.
well, let's have a conversation. This is the reality of what integrity looks like. Any other thoughts or feedback from everybody else? What was it like to hold this new frame?
I just wanted to say that I really appreciate you, Anita, giving us the real world example. Like I love the ones that you guys gave too, but that really like clarified for me how to apply it in the real world, because that is a good situation to talk about. So thanks.
Yeah.
Agreed. Thank you, Anita, and thank you for that, Sarah.
Because it really shows that you can't have a definition that counts on the other person being happy with your actions. You know, if that's how I'm defining it, then my eyes are going to be glued on the other person. How do I, in quotes, make them happy? We're going to be in
Mhm.
trouble there. So then it's like, I don't know what to do. So stepping it back and starting to look at how to reclaim integrity, first for Anita herself, then what she can do to honor the other person and their struggle and the context, opens up more possibilities.
So true. I just put the Facebook group link in the chat. So if you're not part of the Facebook group, I highly encourage you to click the link and join our group. And stay in touch with kind of what's going on in our community. And I'd like to thank everybody for being here today. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Lynn, as we wrap up?
Yeah, I'd like to say, you know, if you know people who want support in building the skills of what we call inner or self mastery, you know, the skills to tune in. What am I thinking and feeling? How do I get back into balance? We have another inner balance starting. The actual first night is April 1st, but you have to sign up the end of March to get the
29th.
materials, March 28th,
9th.
9th. So please let people know, because our belief is that without the skills, we're still just looking at ideas. And it's the skills to actually change our life is what we're really excited about.
Yeah, and the ability to bring them into your daily situations, like Anita just showed a daily situation, and how do we bring those tools into it so we can evolve, grow, and show up differently that is more loving and connected.
And your example was beautiful, Jeff. Like, your behavior wasn't awful, like you didn't trash the party or anything, but it missed the mark for you.
That's right.
And so go ahead.
That's a good point, Lynn. And so that's an example where most people wouldn't have known that there was something going on for me. It wasn't like obvious. I wasn't stomping around or pouting, you know, or anything like that. But because I do this work and have these tools, I knew, so it took me a bit, then I tuned in, something's off inside of me. So instead of deleting or dismissing myself, I went into and thought, okay, what's going on? And then I backtracked in my mind, what's created all of those scale tips that got me here. Oh, I got up and da 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 da. And then I knew that I would have a conversation with Lynn to get back in integrity with her. If she picked up on it or not, I don't know. It's still my integrity to speak up. And so you're right. It's what I've learned over time is because of this work and understanding integrity and tuning into myself.
Almost done, honey. We're hanging up in a minute. Oh, sorry. Sorry. my son.
Sweetheart, talk to you later.
Well, clearly I need to wrap this up.
Sorry. I'm so sorry. I thought I was muted still.
Sarah, do you have it? Do you
What I was
have
going
him?
to say is in the
Do you have him
past,
trained when company's there?
Yeah, sort of, not really.
what I was going to say is in the past, I may either not notice that. If I did notice it, dismiss it, justify it away, definitely not go far enough to have a conversation with Lynn, or it might have taken me a week to go to that or something, but likely not at all. I would just go, it wasn't a big thing and no big deal, blah, blah, blah. But because of this work and wanting to stay connected and open-hearted, I notice it in me, and then there's a part of me that says I have to speak up to this. I want to really speak up to this.
And I will just, as soon as Jeff said that, when he reached out, I said, I noticed. But then I just went into, oh, well, you know, he's thinking about the stuff for the company and the new stuff we just ordered. But it absolutely had registered. So now that brings us both closer. It helps me not discount my own observations. It wasn't that I was really upset or anything, but it was just confirmation. Yeah, we're seeing, we're feeling, we're noticing, and that's a lovely feeling and builds trust in a relationship.
So true.
All right.
Absolutely.
Well, we
Thank
will
you.
wrap up. Thank you, everyone, for showing up.
Thank you.
Thank you for
All
the
right.
entertainment, Sarah.
Anytime.
wonderful
I'll be here
note.
next time too.
Okay.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Bye.
Thank you.
Everyone.